Hello, everybody. Good morning here in Jakarta time. As you know, this series actually explored Indonesians who are living and working overseas. And today, I'm glad to invite Sonita Lontoh to our series today because she is someone who I know personally and who I've known for over decades now, 2 decades. We were college students together back in Berkeley, so that's quite a while back. And now she's thriving professionally. She's the division CMO or Chief Marketing Officer at Hewlett Packard, and also a board member at Sunrun, which is a company specializing in solar technology. So it's really an honor and excitement for me as well personally to invite Sonita to our show today. So let's have her right now, Sonita Lontoh. Hello.
Hey, Grace, how are you?
Hi, long time no see,
Oh my
Son. Well, are you in a bar?
God, Lucy.
I think
Yeah, how
it's
are
a bar.
you? Okay, let me click on this. Okay. Oh my God, like it has been at least 2 years.
At least, yeah. The last time you came back to Jakarta,
At least
yeah?
2 years. Yeah, because of COVID last year, I couldn't go home, and you're probably not traveling, right?
Yes. Well, I'm glad to see you, even though virtually.
Likewise, yes. And I
And
think
and
this worked out pretty well. Yeah.
yeah, and thank you so much for the time. So, as you know, we have interviewed people previously who
Mm-hmm.
lived and work in the US. And of course, you are one of those people. And you are, as I mentioned just now, I stated your position and what you're doing today. But obviously, you want to talk more about your journey living and working in
Mm-hmm.
the US. Now, first of
All
all,
right.
Son, so this is going to be a combo of English, Bahasa, it doesn't matter, okay?
Yeah.
It's fine. All
Okay.
right, so let me ask you, when you studied, I mean, your high school and your junior high were in Jakarta, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so why did you decide to pursue your undergrad in the US? And at that time, before you moved to the US to study, did you have, I don't know, an inkling or a desire to work in the US after you have finished your school?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, and to be honest, right, like right now, like whatever, 25 plus 30, 25 plus years later, you have a better perspective compared to, where you were at the time. So the answer is, Grace, to be honest with you, I didn't think too much, like I felt a lot of my friends were going abroad for school. I wanted to go abroad for school. So if you really ask me, was there any deep reason why I wanted to go to the US? Not really. The answer was just like, hey, everyone's going. Like, I want to have a different experience. That was the very kind of like open and honest answer. And
Right.
plus, of course, I was also aware a lot of the universities in the US were good universities. I wanted an opportunity to experience something different. And so, the reasoning wasn't as deep as, like like just like life altering experience kind of thing, right?
Okay.
And then in terms of whether I wanted to work in the US, the answer was no. You know what I mean? Like I felt at the time, what was in my thinking was, hey, usually people go to the US, right after college, you can work for a few years, right? And then you go to graduate school. It's just kind of the rite of passage, I would say. A lot of people in our cohort, and then usually people go back to Indonesia. And so that was also what I was thinking. So I was not thinking like, oh, I plan to stay in the US. My plan was go to school, work a couple years, get experience, maybe go to graduate school, and then go at some point go back to Indonesia.
I see. All right. So tell us, of course, I mean, I know you personally, but a lot of people maybe don't know you, right? So tell us your academic journey. Like, where did you go to school and what did you major in?
Sure, sure. So I went for my undergrad to Berkeley. That's how we met. And I majored in industrial engineering and operations research. And the reason for that, because I knew I was very good in math. And I wasn't quite sure what major I wanted to be in, but I wanted something that's a combination of technical, but there is some business, So my mom was the one who just said, "Oh, how about industrial engineering? That
Mhm.
seems to be the application of math and optimization to some kind of productivity problems." So I'm like, "Yeah, sure, sounds good." So that's what I majored in. And then after Berkeley, actually, I graduated. When I graduated, I had the opportunity to start an online game company with two friends that I met at
Oh,
Berkeley.
I did not know
So
this.
yes, so I did that for a couple years. We started an online game company, and granted, looking back, I think that was really my real MBA happened at that time, because it was kind of like, someone who's so young and not knowing much. But we had an inkling that, our goal was really to grow users, grow users and grow viewers. And we did that for a couple of years, Grace, and then we eventually, sold the company to a larger player for a small profit. And then it came time for me to kind of like, hey, what's next, and I felt it still wasn't the time to go back to Indonesia yet, because I knew I wanted to work a couple more years and maybe go to graduate school, and then so I worked in like a small software company here in the Bay Area. And then it came time to go to graduate school, and I wanted to actually get both my master's in engineering and also my MBA. And so I went to MIT for my master's in engineering and an MBA at Northwestern Kellogg. And I think it was really in graduate school that I started to kind of develop a few guiding principles, let's just put it that way. And what I meant by guiding principles is not exactly knowing which area or which functional area or which industry you wanted to be in, but more kind of like a larger, like a more general framework as to what I found I like to do, And so the first one, I think in graduate school, I started realizing I love kind of the intersection of new technology, if there is some kind of new technology that, create new business models, because usually when you have a new technology,
Sure.
the disruptive effect of the technology is some kind of new business model. And then even a little bit of policy, for some reason, I found, like policy fascinating, because at least in the US, a lot of the really disruptive technology usually need the right policy
Mm.
in order for it to be adopted, by the masses, right? It takes some time. And then the second, and this actually sounds kind of cheesy, I also felt like I wanted to work in an area, and maybe this is the technology part that is kind of contributing to this new technology. I wanted to work in an area that there is like an additionality in terms of contributing something more to society rather than just selling a product. And what I meant by that is, of course, there's nothing wrong with selling cereals. You make lots of people happy eating cereals, right? But the societal impact is not as clear as, let's say, if you work in a new technology area that is either healthcare or energy, or even creating a new ecosystem that's more sustainable. You know what I mean? So I knew I wanted to work in an area that there is that additionality factor. And to be honest with you, that's I think the start of how I got into this new, for the past 20 plus years, basically my experience, the connecting thread has been at the intersection of there is some kind of new technology going on, and then usually there is digital transformation going on, and then there is also usually some kind of disruptive technology. So for the past 20 years, like I've always been at the intersection of these three without actually planning it. It just kind of so happened, like every opportunity that either I bump into or came to me had always been connecting with these three things. And I've done it both with new businesses at large companies. So I've been at some very large companies, but always with their new businesses, and also with venture-backed Silicon Valley startups, because it has always been about new technology, innovation, disruptive, digital transformation.
Sonita, you actually mentioned a good point I want to ask you, okay? And this is based on what you just said, and also my observation and what I heard from people who studied in the US. You mentioned that you wanted something very specific. For example, in your case, it's clean technology, right? Green technology. And I've heard people who said that when they majored something very specific in the US, whether it's robotics or maybe molecular biology, I'm not sure what the title, what the majors are. It's very hard for them to go back to countries such as Indonesia, because there are no openings. There's not a lot of demand for this very specific narrow set of skills. As opposed to America, we have definitely more opportunities, more, more options to, for your major. Do you believe that is that to be true? Because, for example, I know a friend. She went to Carnegie Mellon and she studied robotics, and she came back to Indonesia for one reason or another, and now she works for her family business. That's nothing to do with technology or robots. She
Yeah,
sells ice cream as well on the side, right? Making ice
right.
cream, right? I mean, it's not. I'm not saying that's something bad, but it's completely different what she studied. So that's the question I want to ask you. Do you feel that is true? And you've seen that happening as well. People like that, including yourself.
Yeah, and actually the answer to that, Grace, it's funny. I actually never even thought about clean tech. So my choices were actually clean tech or healthcare, and both were aligned with wanting to work in an area that's contributing something more
Sure.
to society. It just so happened I started in clean tech. But my answer to you is, yeah, I think if you're extremely technical, which by the way, I'm not, I'm not extremely technical. I'm not like someone who, have patents or like,
Sure.
create something new, like a new technology, right? But I think for those types of people, definitely, I think going back to Indonesia would be extremely hard because, first of all, I think it would be very tough for them to find places where they can really create, kind of like this new technology, right? But I think for other people who are not so hardcore, including myself or maybe other friends, or other people that have gone back, you just adapt, because at the end of the day, I
Mm.
think what we learn here or where we learn anywhere, but I don't know about the higher educational system in Indonesia, I think it's a way of thinking, a
Mm.
way to do critical thinking and to understand the fundamentals so that you can apply it in novel situation.
Okay. All right.
So
That's
in,
interesting.
in my opinion, unless you're like hardcore
Yes.
scientists,
Yes.
hardcore, technologists, I think
Yes.
I
Yes.
think you can go back to Indonesia and just
Sure.
do something else. Yeah.
Okay. I know you never work in the Indonesia, right?
Never, yeah.
Okay. But people, maybe you
Of
also
course.
you heard people,
Yeah, I
right,
know a
work in
lot of people.
Indonesia.
Yeah, yeah, of course,
All
of
right.
course.
What do you think? Okay, this is based on a personal observation, yeah, based on your personal observation experience. What do you think is the biggest difference between the work attitude of professionalism in Indonesia versus the US?
Oh, I have to be very careful because I've never worked in Indonesia, so I should not assume, but of course, this is just based on what people tell me and then just listening to. I think in Indonesia, probably people are still very hierarchical. And actually, even today, I have global customers, right? You know what I mean? And I notice in certain Asian countries, not all, by the way, but certain Asian countries, very hierarchical.
Mm,
Hierarchical. Basically, what that means is that it's just that everyone wait for the big boss to tell them what to do.
mm,
And I would say here in the US, especially in the field of technology, things tend to be pretty flat. I mean, I'm not saying there's no politics. Of course, there are office politics everywhere you go, but things are more flat, and especially in tech companies, I think junior people,
mm,
as long as they have the data to back it up, as long as they have done their homework, they can provide an idea. And sometimes, the company would test the idea, and if it works out,
mm,
they will adopt it. And
mm.
my understanding is in Indonesia, or even
Yes.
in some of the places, like today, I have a lot of customers from Japan, for instance. I can tell that, like the culture there is much more hierarchical. They wait for like the big boss to kind of decide or tell them what to do. Even though they're very capable, but the decision happens with, like basically, it's very
Sure. Sure.
hierarchical, right? And then the second thing, and Grace, I guess this is also maybe just me kind of projecting my experience, like doing my basically I did my quick K-12 in Indonesia, right? I felt like Indonesian educational system, at least during my time, it's all about discipline. It's about working hard, which by the way, everyone has to work hard, but discipline, working hard, I used to be a very good student because I did a lot of problem sets. I've
Mm,
done like thousands. So by the time I see something, oh, I've seen that before. You know what I mean?
mm,
I have to do that.
mm,
But I notice with people here, especially as you get a little bit higher up, they're very good with dealing with abstract problems. And I
mm,
think, and maybe it's just me, but I feel myself because I did my K-12 in Indonesia and maybe some of the other Indonesians, we're very good with more kind of like memorization,
That's true.
repeating things, efficiencies, but we're not so good with imagining what is possible, and especially thinking about things that have not been thought before.
Mm.
I don't know whether that's
No, no.
true, but
I,
I
I,
just
I,
feel like that is, and sometimes to innovate, like real innovation, you do need that, like, and I guess that kind of creativity, even though I do know a lot of Indonesians are very creative, don't get me wrong, but I think that creation of new category is very hard when you grow up in a society where discipline and um, not hard work, of course you have to do hard work, but my point is there is a difference between me that I was a good student because I've done 10,000 problem sets versus someone here who, let's say, understand the
mm,
fundamental uh, issues and then can look at things in a very different way
mhm.
and apply it in very novel situations to come up with something that you would be like, wow, you've
Yes.
never thought of that before. Yeah.
I do agree with your assessment because I on my Instagram I also interview different kind of people, right? And recently I
Yeah.
interviewed an entrepreneur. He
Yeah.
actually dropped out from his SMR, which is basically high school, because and he failed his junior high 3 times or something like that. So he decided to drop
Yeah.
out. But now he's a successful businessman entrepreneur, right? Because he
Right.
said when he was young, he was taught to just have to learn everything, and he did not like all the subjects, right? So he could not think outside the box. So I totally agree with what you said, and especially the first part about the hierarchy. Totally agree. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
also at fault still with my organization as well. I need to kind of look inwardly based on the observation as an outsider. Definitely, I agree with that. Uh,
Yeah. So yeah, I would say maybe those two things.
Sure, sure. Sonita, you said that you have worked in the U.S. for 20 years. Obviously you have a lot of challenges that you have faced. Would you say that your challenges, especially as an Asian immigrant working in the U.S., do you think it's more pronounced earlier in your career, trying to climb up the corporate ladder, or right now where you are, I would say, and one at the top already, and maintaining that? How would you say the differences in terms of challenges are?
Yeah, I think the challenge, I think in general, maybe not about being an immigrant, but I think being an Asian.
Hmm.
Because I think Asian Americans in general, because we're only 7% of the population. And what I meant by that, to put it bluntly, is just not big enough for any of the politicians to care, for their electorates, right? 7% is, very small. And then to make matters worse, Asians are actually a very diverse group. There is East Asian, there's Southeast Asian, there is South Asian. So we're already like 7% and very fragmented. So already very bad to begin with. And then I think just the history of the United States had always kind of treated Asian as a foreigner.
Mm,
Of course, I am a foreigner, but what I meant is like many other Asians, they've been here for 2, 3 generations, but people still like, no, no, where are you from? Like, where are you
mm,
really from? Like, they want to know your nationality. That's what they want to know. And I think Asians are also um, we are very good academically, right? Like usually we get to middle management, but then it's usually very hard for Asians to get into executive position or C-suite or board. And it all has something to do, this is at least what they say, like I myself, yeah, sometimes I've experienced it, but not too blatantly. It's more like subconsciously, you know what I mean? Like subconsciously. It's because they think Asians in general don't have leadership experience,
mm,
whatever that is, like executive presence or speaking up for yourself or being able to think outside the box, being able to lead a team. Like I think there is
mm,
this perception that Asians in general are very good technically, but not very good in leadership capacity, whatever
wow.
that is. You know what I mean? And of course, some of it is true, but some of it is not true. And then what makes it even worse, Grace, so in universities, we're definitely not, and again, I'm talking something that might be pretty sensitive here, but it's true. So in universities, right, Asians are not considered underrepresented because there are so many of us at top universities. But when you look at, in corporate America, we are actually underrepresented. However, because people think, oh, Asians are doing so well, like they don't need any help. So when these companies develop programs to help underrepresented minorities, a lot of time Asians are not included because they think, oh, Asians, they're fine, they're smart, they're doing well. When in fact, I think in corporate America, we need help as much as African American or Hispanic or Native American, because above the middle management, we're very underrepresented, extremely underrepresented. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you be where you are? You are in the sea level already. So what
Yes.
what did you have to go through? What is
Yeah.
your unique quality?
I don't know whether I don't know how, to be honest with you, but I feel like maybe starting 10 years ago, I felt I started to have a platform outside of my own work, meaning like, of course, I've always been with all kinds of companies and usually, and granted, right, remember, I've always been involved with some kind of new technology. So when you're involved in a new technology, usually you have to have a point of view with regard to, where the market is going and blah, 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 you know what I mean? And I've done a lot of those kind of thought leadership. So it's almost like I've developed my own kind of like platform, for thought leadership in certain areas, especially, IoT or digital transformation or disruptive technology. And I think that helps in attracting other companies to like want to recruit me. And usually when they want to recruit you, they have to offer you something more than wherever you are at, right? And so it's interesting, Grace, because actually recently some of my colleagues here at HP, we were having dinner and, people, we were going around the table and everyone asked, how long, what was the longest you've been at one company? And everyone was like, oh, I've been at one company. I was at Pepsi for 16 years, or I was at, like Intel, whatever, for like 15 years. And then I look at myself, oh my God, I've been in so many companies because I've never stayed at a company for more than 4 years. But I would say it's not because of unhappiness, but there is always someone else pinging me. Yeah. And then I wanted to explore that next thing, because even this HP opportunity, for instance, is not even in an area that I've been in at all. When they reached out to me, they said, hey, we have this new business. Actually, when they reached out, it's a secret. I had to sign an NDA before they could tell me what it was. It's something completely different, but they needed someone who, can open up new things, and so so I think for me it happened maybe because I have developed thought leadership, and then like there is always an opportunity come my way that is like a higher level than wherever I was at the time.
I want to ask, but this might be sensitive, and I'm not trying to say this in an offensive way or anything, but I do want to know your point of view. Do you think, as an Asian, like you mentioned, do you have to? I don't want to say the word fake, but do you have to? What's the word? Yeah, whiten yourself. Make yourself more white to be able to advance corporately.
Yeah, and I think that it depends what does it mean to be more white, right? If you think of it as like, being able to not play sports, but being able to talk sports or play sports, and not really, because I don't, I mean, my husband is a sports fan, but oh my God, like I'm not. I guess the answer, Grace, it depends. Like, what does it mean to be white? Because you're not white. Everyone knows you're not white. You know what I mean? And for me, I found like maybe in the beginning you felt a little bit uncomfortable, but I think as you grow older and all that, hey, you are who you are, and if they appreciate you, they appreciate you, and if they don't, then they don't. Then you go somewhere else.
Maybe I'll put it this way, especially these days with the anti-Asian sentiment on the rise, especially in the Bay Area. Let me just put it this way: maybe it's not more white, or maybe that term maybe is not it's not too correct. But like you said just now, when people see Asian, I believe that people see Asian as an obedient kind, a pliant type, that submissive type, right?
Yes.
So when you go into a corporate setting, especially when there's a lot of office politics, like you mentioned, like you don't want to be, you don't want to like be, oh, that Asian that's gonna be like very Asianized in the sense that you're gonna be an Asian activism in your workplace and you make a lot of noises, but you were just quietly following everybody, especially when there's a lot of more white people in that situation. You don't want to be the one that's like, okay, oh, that Asian's gonna be in trouble because we're gonna be more Asian. We have to be more careful around her. That kind of thing, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to answer this question very honestly. Actually, I think it's actually quite the opposite these days. I think because of the Me Too movement with George Floyd last year and all that, I think a lot of corporations actually want their minority leaders, including Asian American leaders, to be very vocal. They want them to, there is an opportunity, I would say, right now in corporate America, where they actually want you to be vocal, to share about your experiences, to have town hall meetings where you share about some of the challenges of being a minority. I mean, right now, Grace, honestly, I think the tide has turned. Actually, the corporations want you to be vocal.
I see.
Yeah.
But this is something that's
Recent,
relatively new, I would say. Yeah.
very recent. Yeah. So I would say as of last year.
Oh, that's really new then. So I guess you're 19 plus years.
Very,
You've
very,
been
very,
different.
yeah. And in the past, and again, maybe this is just reflection of like me also having to mature in my own kind of like identity and comfort. Grace, I'll be honest with you, in the past, I myself didn't feel the need to be that vocal. But now I feel like, so for instance, earlier this year, like a group reached out to me and said, hey, we're going to have this kind of like anti-Asian big meeting, what I mean, where you can share experiences and all that. And then I told them, no, I don't feel comfortable, what I mean? But then looking back now, I felt like I should have said yes, what I mean, to that group. So the truth is, I think I myself as a person in the past, I've never really thought about it. And if anything, I feel uncomfortable to like be complaining about this or that, what I mean? But right now, many people have told me leaders have to speak up, because if you don't speak up, then people don't understand, and people don't know the experiences.
I see.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I think your point just now that you said that word that you cannot speak up. You don't feel like you don't have to speak up, right? I feel like maybe this is our upbringing in Asian culture, where our
Yeah,
parents always tell us, you should be grateful already that you have whatever,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, because the truth is, Grace, and again, I mean, of course, knock on wood. The truth is, I felt I've never experienced like real bad racism. No, honestly, I've never experienced real bad racism, except, in the last few months, sometimes some homeless people in San Francisco have been, I've gotten chased twice by
Wow.
homeless people. But of course, I don't know, is it because I'm
Gosh.
Asian or just because they're crazy? Who knows, right?
Yeah.
That's the dangerous. I was running
Wow.
into a Target. I was running into a Target just to save myself from this one
Oh
homeless
my
person.
gosh.
I know, but the thing is, I felt like I've never really experienced like
Sure,
really bad things.
sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean,
I know.
sure, there are like microaggressions and things like that, but I felt like it's not a big deal.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But I want to go back to you being Indonesian because I want to inspire Indonesians, right? Like you mentioned, when you get to the middle management, okay, a lot of people maybe get to the middle management, but it's hard for them to move to the next level. And I think you managed to do that because of perseverance and grit. But what would your advice be to Indonesians who are immigrants, obviously, who want for them to stay put? Because I know a lot of Indonesians, they try, and then after a few years, they just give up and they go back to Indonesia for one reason or another, right? So what would your advice be to Indonesians who want to stay and live and work and be successful like you are professionally in America?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, well, sure, this is for Indonesian, but also for anyone. I would say any kind of young people who are thinking about going through, the career journey. First, I think to have a growth mindset. And what I meant by growth mindset is you have to always try to look at the world as to like what is possible. Like you have to sometimes be able to change yourself, because things keep changing and you have to just be willing to always be open and be able to change. Okay, so that's one. And then the second, I think not to be afraid to make mistakes. I think when I was younger, oh, I wanted to be perfect. Oh my God, you know what I mean? Like it took forever. But the thing is, hey, don't be afraid to make mistakes, because the truth is when you don't make mistakes, you actually do not grow out of your comfort zone, right? Like it's okay to make mistakes as long as you learn from it and grow from it. And then the third thing I would say, it's again, Grace, you know we've lived quite some time. It's a long journey, so you have to celebrate the little things, because many people I found, they wait for the big thing, the big glorious thing before they celebrate. But the truth is, in our lives, big glorious things are few and far in between, right? You have to just celebrate little milestones so that you get motivated. Hey, you're making a progress, right? The fourth one, I think, is to get good mentors and sponsors, and especially if you're in a corporate environment. I think a lot of people understand the concept of mentorship. A mentor is someone who gives you good advice and things like that. But, there is also sponsors. Sponsors are usually someone who are much more senior, more successful in the organization, who's basically willing to put his or her reputation on the line to help you to earn the opportunity to move ahead, especially when decisions are being made, when opportunities are being discussed, who should we put into this position or who should we send to do this. You do want to have some sponsors, who advocate for you, right?
Okay.
And usually men are very good with this, because somehow they develop relationships through either going to drink together, or go to play golf together. And women are not as good, because we are usually not in those environments where men develop a bond with someone who would be willing to sponsor them. Yeah, I would say probably those are some of my advice.
And maybe one more, maybe to speak up, yeah, because I feel like
Sure. Yes. Definitely. Yes. To speak up. And you know what? Actually, even me, sometimes I've learned I always want to understand first before I speak up, because we all have been in those situations, right? Where there are those people like, oh my God, they just want to speak, they just want to talk, sometimes even whatever they're talking about doesn't make sense, or it's not that meaningful. But you know what, Grace, I found every time I want to speak up, just speak up. Because when you don't speak up first, someone else is going to say whatever you're going to say. And by the time that other person has already said it, then you cannot say it, right? You know what I mean? So, it's better to actually just say it first, because sometimes I want to wait. I want to understand the whole situation. I want to say something that's meaningful. And then someone else is just, saying it. And so I would say, yeah, speak up and say it maybe the first or the second person, so that, you don't become the last person that after everyone has already given their opinion and this and that. But yeah, exactly.
Sonita, thank you so much for your time. I know this 30 minutes are the 30 minutes is up, but I think we get a lot of good points from you today. And I'm so happy to see you. I did not know about you're being chased by the homeless, but I know SF it's quite a crazy crazy area these days, right?
So many homeless right now, Grace. So many. Yeah. And I live in downtown, and oh my God, there's so many. I mean,
you were sharing me even before COVID that that the homeless problem was an issue in SF where you live, right? But you live in a nicer neighborhood, right? So I can imagine post COVID. I mean, right now, how is the situation there? It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you once again, and
I'm so happy to see you too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope that everybody's watching here, you guys can learn from Sonita. I know her personally; she's definitely a hardworking woman. Not only that, I think she has been such a role model to a lot of people who know her personally, because she doesn't give up. Even I remember when she was in Berkeley, she was always very outspoken, not in a negative way, but outspoken in the sense that she believed what is right and she would speak for that. So, Sonita, again, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
See you soon, okay? Be safe.
Everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.